teachers of Reddit, what was the student you gave up on like? What are they like now? Oh, I remember the student I gave up on. It was my first year teaching too, so it stuck with me. I teach primarily ESL, and in my class I had this one student who I just despised. He made sexually aggressive comments about other students in Spanish, but I knew enough to understand what he was saying. Plus I had some angels in that class who would look out for the other kids and tell me privately how the comments this particular student was making were disgusting and highly inappropriate. Anyway, after days and a few weeks of desperately trying to understand his struggles and try to get him on a better path, he kept making gross comments and even started hurtling some at me. I was at my wit's end. Eventually, one of my female students told her dad about this student, and he got the police involved. Kudos to him, because my admin was doing jack shit, and I felt hopeless, like I could not help these kids or protect them. She was able to get a restraining order from him, and he was not in our class for the rest of the year. After that, my first year of teaching went smoothly. I do not care much about that other student, but the rest of the students in that class graduated and are in college now. I did leave that school after my second year there, but I did come back to their prom and graduation because my first group of students holds a special place in my heart. I read primary ESL and then was rather disturbed by the sexually aggressive comments of this elementary school student. Upon rereading the sentence, I'm still disturbed, just to a lesser degree, but still to a reasonable degree. Oh, I realized I did not specify that I teach high school ESL. The comments he made were still very gross and inappropriate for any age or setting. There was this one kid who was a smug, self-entitled little brat. He was raised to believe that winning was everything, and unfortunately he was actually really good at athletics. When he was in 5th grade he would single-handedly win 5 games in a row. Then when a kindergartner accidentally scored a goal on him, he threw a fit like he was 3 years old. He was constantly rude to staff and a bully to other kids. Talked like he owned the place. I do not ever give up on kids who can be helped. But the problem was this kid's parents. Not only, as I mentioned before, did they raise him to believe winning was life or death, but they always backed down on punishments. One time we reported something to his mom and she grilled him in the hallway for a few minutes. The next day she came in and explained to us how she felt bad for punishing him yesterday. So she bought him the new video game he wanted to make up for it. Like, sorry, what? You do not make up for disciplining your child. We literally could not do anything to help him, as everything we did to help was immediately undone by his parents that evening. He ended up being decked one time by a kid he was picking on, and while I will not say that I enjoyed it, I certainly did not feel sorry for him. I don't think a lot of people on this site watch this show, but this kinda reminds me of Alice Sands from Risley and Isles. Wow, I love RI, but I do not remember Alice Sands at all. And as a fan of Halt and Catch Fire years after watching RI, Annabeth Jish. My high school principal in year 12. He was new to the area and he decided to cancel the enrollments of students that were not doing so well, so the school average would go up. Year 11th and 12 are not compulsory where I am, and he could not just suspend or expel students, so use the term cancelled enrollment and use the argument they could re-enroll next year. The principal ended up getting rid of all the grade 11 and 12 students with poor grades before we had our end of year exams, which were standardized and reported to our state education department. There were a lot of students that could have easily finished high school with a little bit of help, but it was easier for the principal to just get rid of them so he would look good on paper. Had 3 friends that did not finish high school because of that principal, and I got a letter from him threatening to cancel my enrollment because my passing grade was not enough. This was a public school, by the way. That is insane. I hope he was fired after that. When I was undergraduate, the university that I studied in had a system of clubs where university students taught math to high schoolers. Usually high schoolers are very motivated because, well, only someone very motivated will choose to go to other part of the city on Saturday evenings to study math. But once I had that guy who was very disruptive and was not doing any studying, so I asked him, why exactly is he here? Turns out that for some reason his parents lied to him. He thought that going to those clubs would guarantee him being enrolled in the university, which is absolutely not the case. Universities do not even have their own exams. Everything is determined by results on the state exam, state competitions, etc. So I thought that on the one hand, if he continues to visit us, he might learn something. But on the other hand, it does not seem that he is doing anything useful and he is preventing others from studying. So I gave up on him and told him the truth. Have not seen him since that day and have no idea what he is doing and had he managed to enroll. Since then, I have worked as a teacher in a few schools and summer camps. I cannot say that I was always successful, but there is only one other person I ever gave up on. It was a summer camp, and I taught to a group of 13 YOS. In summer camp, kids are less motivated because it is summer and because some of them are shoved there against their will. So it is not a big deal if some kids are not studying much. That guy was a relatively big deal. I do not remember what exactly he did on my lessons, but after the second day I recommended to expel him. That was the only time in my career when I recommended to expel a student. The camp manager declined it, probably thinking that I'm just being dramatic. On the 5th day he did not show up on my lessons. Why? Because he was expelled for peeing on a head of another student. A student that just acted as a cat. No jokes. First year of work, they send me a cat kid. Never talked. Suddenly drops from his chair to the floor. A complete loner. It was a hard class. I also had orphan, disabled kids, a lot of special needs, but I managed to work with them, at least got them to learn. The cat kid was a lost cause. The years of college never prepared me for him. Kid failed the whole year. Cannot read, cannot do math, cannot talk, just meow, sometimes even walk on 4. Parents were of course uninterested, never cared to do anything for him. Of course I was to blame for his failures. The only way I managed to not get fired on the spot after his results was to take the director to the class and show him what was going on. Eventually I was released from that school. I have no idea what is going on with him today, but that experience killed my career. Currently I'm a second-year psychology student. Maybe with this one I will find out what I was doing wrong during that job. I don't think you did anything wrong. Did you talk to the parents about taking another course of action with him? I don't understand why it wasn't addressed by your superiors in the first month. I live in a third world country, and here education is a bussiness. If parents pay, the public school is fine with anything. Only private schools care about child safety. I did try to help him. Parents said it was my job to fix him. My superiors were too uninterested until it was time for the school evaluation. I tried, but I just could not do it by myself. No experience or help. I'm not a teacher lol, but I was a certified swim instructor and camp leader lol. But in one of my swim classes there was one kid that just could not pass. He tried over and over again but just couldn't pass cause his form and endurance was all wrong. Everything this kid did had the wrong form, even though he can float. So when he reached my class there wasn't any way I can pass him. He was very arrogant and refused to learn the proper way, saying I'm fine doing it this way. He would always talk back to me and refuse me of any advice. I admit I did eventually give up on him. Eventually his dad stopped paying for lessons and he still can't swim very well. Last time I saw him was a month ago in public. He wasn't too happy to see me, but his dad was. We exchanged hellos and his dad told me that maybe swimming just wasn't for him and that he had pulled him out of it. That will be nice for his parents to remember when their kid drowns. My parents pulled me out of swimming lessons because I was doing poorly and the instructors were awful to me. I was terrified of jumping off the diving board, so they forced me up there and shoved in me. That summer I swam a bunch at our cabin and I did fine. I'm now a competent swimmer. I do have issues with going underwater, which I think is a direct result of those lessons. For me, when I teach younger students to swim, some of them are afraid of jumping off the ledge, and if nothing works I will pull them in, or in some cases push them in. They have life jackets on. When I was 3 years old I was terrified of putting my face underwater, but because of a stupid pride issues with my neighbor, my mom locked me in a bathroom and told me I wasn't allowed to come out till I learned to hold my breath underwater. I cried my lungs out but eventually succeeded, lol. I'm thankful for that. I guess different people deal with certain trauma differently. I'm sorry for what you had to go through with your instructors though. I'm the student that my teacher gave up on, and I hated her so much I became a teacher. She liked to bully students with anxiety. She will target an awkward student and will call them in front of all 1,000 students in assembly, then make them speak. She will then call her favorite and proceed to make fun of us dimwit and compare us to her favorites. I bet you are that teacher kids remember their whole lives as the one who believed in everyone. I wish to be better. Laughing, I do limit the work I give to my student. No homework. You do the best you can. The attitude you go in with matters. He was not leaning anything and interrupting class, and his parents refused to cooperate. His father, an exterminator, even went so fast as to say he never learned 7th grade math, so his son should not either. I went to the principal and demanded the kids get a tutor. He is doing great and not interrupting. Win-win. Seems like there probably was not such a problem in kid rather than in parents' attitude. If he is doing great with the tutor's assistance, you have made the best decision for him. Wins for you and for the kid's future. Honestly, the parents are the problem most of the time. Why should the students care when their parents do not? I got a degree in biology with a concentration in teaching. I didn't end up becoming a teacher, duck that. I realized it was not for me, but I did spend quite a lot of time in classrooms as a once-a-week intern and then a full-time student teacher. I ran into a lot of problem students, and it was so hard to know how to help them, especially when so many of them didn't seem to want to be helped. What a lot of students didn't seem to realize is that I can't help them if they aren't willing to help themselves. The one instance that sticks out to me the most was nothing crazy, but still boggles my mind. I was always a great student, so I can't really understand the mindset of lazy, for lack of a better word, students. I was interning in a high school biology class, mostly 10th graders 15, 16 years old. I was only there a total of 6 days, so I never got to know the class that well. However, during one of the classes I was leading a review session for an upcoming test. We had made it clear that the students could take notes on the review session and use those notes on the test, and that the questions we were going over and giving the answers to would be very similar to those they would see on the test. One student had his headphones in the entire review session and didn't write a word down for notes. I even told him that if he took notes, he was pretty much guaranteed an A or a B. He didn't care. He wasn't willing to put in the most minimal effort in writing down questions and answers that we gave him so that he could do well on the test, when I'm quite honestly spoon feeding the students answers and they still can't be bothered. I'm not sure what I could possibly do to get through to them. Another instance that shocked me was seeing several students hand in absolutely blank tests or quizzes. Like, you don't even want to guess. You don't even want to put C for every answer and take the 25% chance you are right. I don't know where those kids are now, but I'm willing to bet not in college and not being successful at a job. I absolutely believe that being bad at school does not necessarily translate to being an unproductive citizen. Of course, most of the kids in those classes are not going to end up in a job where they have to know the ins and outs of cell division. Where they will struggle the most is work ethic. If you can't have a decent work ethic in a class where the teacher is helping you the best they can, where you don't have to even study to get a good grade on a test, then how are you supposed to have a good work ethic in the real world? Teachers get a lot of shit, especially here on Reddit, but goddamn, I have so much respect for them. After being in their shoes, I could never have the patience to deal with that crap year after year. While I agree that's frustrating, it is important to remember students often feel they are getting nothing for the time they put into school. Especially when their home life sucks or their parents do not value education. Many kids will do terrible in school because of this, but function well enough when they are getting paid to work. Not all of them, but school is such an unrewarding experience short term, at the exact time where kids have not developed long-term thinking skills, that it is not surprising so many struggle. Source: I have been working with those exact kids for nearly a decade and spent 6 years at boys girls clubs before that. I cannot tell you how many kids I have seen working from the day they got a job until the day they could work full time, while absolutely failing school. I also cannot tell you how many I have seen fail at both though, but it is not 100% either way and closer to 50-50 than you would imagine. The empty test thing is a control thing. They know they will fail, so they are failing on their terms. It is actually the reason I have switched to doing interviews about the material in my anger management classes, rather than tests. If they can tell me what part of the material they think best applies to them, they have learned enough about the material and themselves to get something out of the class. But many of them have failed at so many things they just expect from here on out. I'm glad to hear there's a good chance that those kids could be doing much better for themselves now. Again, it's just very difficult for me to understand because I was always a good student and school was never unrewarding for me. But of course I was very lucky to be a smart kid with supportive parents. Honestly, the best teachers are the people that didn't do great in school because they can truly understand and empathize with the struggling students. What do you think is the best way to get through to those kinds of kids? Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe for more videos.